Bir öncekini istersen. Tamam. Günaydın. Günaydın herkese. Hoş geldiniz. Hem şehir dışından gelen arkadaşlarımız var, hem İstanbul Cumartesi bu güzel havada bizle olan arkadaşlarımız var. Çok sağ olun. Öncelikle ufak bir özürle günaydın, merhabalar. Bugünkü buluşmamıza hoş geldiniz. İstanbul Bilgi Üniversitesi'nde bugün birlikte Türkiye'de NEET Gençler Araştırması'nın proje tanışması ve paydaş toplantısını yapacağız. Önce minik bir özürle başlıyorum. Bazı arkadaşlarımız farklı güvenliklerden girerken sorun yaşamışlar ve bayağı bir yol yürütmüşüz. Gerçekten kusura bakmayın, biz bildirdiğimizi sanıyorduk. Yani bildirdik de ama böyle bir aksaklık olmuş. Bazı arkadaşlarımız da gelirken ufak kaza, uçak kaçırma gibi şeyler yaşadılar. Ama bir aradayız ve umarım bugün verimli bir gün olacak. We also have our guest Francisco just leaving, so I just want to say hello, but it's okay now. Pardon, Francisco'ya hoş geldiniz diyecektim ama zaten Francisco çıkınca ben devam edebilirim Türkçe. Bugün aslında uzun bir gün olacak burada katılımcılara, ama aynı zamanda bu ilk oturumu, Francisco'nun olduğu oturumu biz Zoom'dan da veriyoruz ve dışarıdan da katılımcılara açtık. O yüzden bu ilk kısımda sadece devam edecek olan workshop'ta bizimle beraber olacak arkadaşlarımızın dışında bu konuyla ilgilenen herkese açmak istedik. Böyle bir şeyimiz var. Çok kısaca ben dediğim gibi bir hoş geldiniz demek istedim. Projeyi Emre Hoca tanıtacak. Ama ondan önce belki şunu söylemek lazım. Bildiğiniz üzere biz Bilgi Üniversitesi'nde hem göç merkezi olarak hem çocuk çalışmaları olarak epey bir zamandır çocuğun iyi olma hali alanında, mevsimlik tarım alanında en dezavantajlı gruplarla birazcık ne yapabiliriz sorusu çerçevesinde hem çocuğun iyi olma hali perspektifi, yapabilirlik yaklaşımı, biyoekolojik model üçlemesi üzerinden çalışıyoruz. Bu sefer de içinde olduğumuz Rural NEET Network, bu bir KOS projesiydi. Orada özellikle tarımda yer alan NEET'lerle, yani ne işte ne eğitim hayatında olanlarla yürütülen bir projeydi. Bununla yola çıkarak bir TÜBİTAK projesi yürütmeye çalışıyoruz. Ama bu bizim hayalimizde tek başımıza yürütebileceğimiz bir proje değil. O yüzden siz paydaşlarla beraber devam etmek istiyoruz. Alandan çok kıymetli emekler veren arkadaşlarımız bizimle burada. Umarız hayal ettiğimiz liste, yani elimizde teyit eden liste hakikaten bugün oluşur. 5 akademisyen, 11 kamu, 24 sivil toplum, uluslararası, ulusal sanayi, iş odaları gibi böyle inanılmaz bir 40 kişi bugün bizle olmayı kabul etti. Hani biraz sonra onların da aramızda tamamen katılarak daha da kalabalık olacağımız, yani 50 kişilik bir grup olacağımızı ümit etmek istiyorum. Öncelikle programı şöyle planladık. Bu sabahtan öğleye projenin tanıtımı ve Francisco, welcome Francisco. I just said hello, but you were just leaving. No problem. And we had the honor of having Francisco with us. Francisco'yu burada ağırlama imkanımız oldu. Sağ olsun geldi. Ve o biraz kendi çalışmalarını, hem KOS projesinde ne yaptıklarını hem nasıl bir yaklaşımla baktıklarını, özellikle Avrupa düzeyinde ve daha tarım ağırlıklı gruba bakıyor. Ama hani onun yanı sıra bir observatory, bir gözlemevi kuruyor şu an. Bu KOS'un bitimindeyiz. Mart'ın ortasında KOS projesi bitecek. Oradan sonra kurulacak gözlemevini de biraz size aktaracak. Belki aranızdan yer almak isteyenler de olur. Çünkü bu sadece akademisyenlerden oluşan bir gözlemevi değil. Böyle bir şansımız da oldu. Onu dinleme imkanımız da oldu. Öğleden sonra ise World Cafe formatında 5 tane kafemiz olacak ve orada buluşacağız. Öğleden sonrayı yemekten sonra anlatacağım. O yüzden şimdi sadece bir hoş geldiniz deyip sözü Emre Hoca'ya bırakmak istiyorum. Buyurun hocam.
Günaydın, herkese hoş geldiniz. Bu geleneksel olarak biz bu güzel havada burada olduğunuz için teşekkür ederiz deriz ama hava güzel değil. Yine teşekkür ederiz. Benim beklentilerim biraz daha farklı olabilir bu mevsim için. Çok çok teşekkürler tekrar burada olduğunuz için. Ben de biraz projede ne yapmak istediğimizi anlatayım ve biraz bilgilendirme yapmak istedim. Zaten Francisco is here and I will switch to Turkish, then I will go back to English. Okay. Açık. Evet. Şimdi proje hakkında şöyle bir şeyle başlayayım. Türkiye'de ne zaman bu konu açıldığında, bu mevsimsel olarak OECD istatistikleri açıkladığında Türkiye'de NEET gençlerin sayısı çok fazla diye bir haberi mutlaka duyuyorsunuz. %30'larda OECD rekortmeni. Net olarak %30'larda, %35'lerde. Bu büyük bir problem. Bunu azaltmazsak bir yere gidemeyiz. Böyle bir yaklaşım var. Bu bir gerçek. Yani bir gerçekten yol çıktı. Türkiye'de NEET olarak tasnif ettiğimiz gençlerin sayısı çok çok fazla. Burada hemen bizim motivasyonumuz ortaya çıkıyor. Bu tasnif doğru mu? Yani baktığınız zaman okula devam etmeyen, bir işte çalışmayan, bir eğitim almayan, herhangi bir eğitim almayan herkes bu kategoriye giriyor mu? Bu önemli bir soru. Biz bunu böyle yaptığımız zaman, böyle tasvir ettiğimiz zaman doğru müdahale politikalarını geliştirebiliyor muyuz? Yoksa hepsini bir anda bir çuval içine koyduğumuzda üretmeye çalıştığımız politikalar kısa düşüyor mu? Etkisiz kalıyor mu? Bizim geçen bu KOS çalışması çerçevesinde yaptığımız çalışmalardan bir tanesi kavramın soy kütüğünü tartışmakta. Bu kavram nereden çıktı? İlk kim kullandı? Nasıl kullanılmaya başlandı? Eski bir kavram değil, 1996 ilk kullanışı. Daha sonra bildiğimiz anlamda 2000'leri takip ediyoruz. Ve yayılıyor. Yayılmasını sağlayan önemli şey de Avrupa Birliği'nin bunu önemli bir öncelik olarak ön plana çıkarması. Buradan yukarıdan aşağı doğru giden bir şey var ve Türkiye'de de bu kavramın soy kütüğüne baktığınızda 2010'ları görüyorsunuz. 2010'ların öncesinde bu kavram çok yoğun olarak kullanılmıyor. Dolayısıyla yeni bir kavram. Ve bizim ülkemizde de öğleden sonra da tartışabiliriz. Belki yeri gelir burada da söyleriz. Müdahaleler de yeni. Yani sistematik olarak işsizlikle mücadele değil, NEET sorunuyla tırnak içinde kullanıyorum. Mücadele politikaları görece yeni, sistematik olarak şu anda yürütülmekte olan NEET Pro başta olmak üzere artık sistematik olarak politika üretiyoruz. Dolayısıyla burası bir alan olarak ortaya çıkıyor. Bizim de başlangıç noktamız oydu. KOS projesi bize kırsal kesimle ilgili olmakla beraber farklı profillerin varlığını gösterdi. Yani NEET dediğimiz şey tek bir tip değil, farklı tipte NEET var. Bu NEET kelimesini özellikle kullanıyoruz. Orijinal logoda NEET'in üzerine bir tane asterisk göreceksiniz. Bu açıklamasını getiriyor. Yani bunun Türkçe karşılığı biraz önce konuşuyorduk. Ne olabilir? Ne işleniyor okulda? Neyi olabilir? Biz farklı bir şekilde ev genci dedik zamanında ama o hepsini kapsamıyor. Onu kabul ediyoruz biz. Ev genci iş arayan gençleri dahil etmiyor. Ev gencini başka bir kategori olarak kullandık vesaire. Ama bunu bu şekilde sunmak, NEET asterisk olarak kurmak kavramı içselleştirmemiz gerektiğine dikkat çekiyor. Yani kendi kavramımızı koymamız lazım. Çünkü Türkiye'de bu mesele çok boyutlu. Tek boyutlu değil. Bu çok boyutluluk sadece Türkiye'de özgü değil. Biz bu proje çerçevesinde 35 ülke dahil bu projeyi yaptığımız bütün toplantılarda, çalışmalarda bu çok boyutluluğun her yerde olduğunu gördük. Çok boyutlu bir sorunla karşı karşıyayız. Bu birincisi. İkincisi farklı tipolojiler var. Çalışmanın birinci amaçlarından bir tanesi o farklı tipolojileri ortaya çıkarmak. Bu tipolojiler sadece yapısal değil, aynı zamanda işlevsel. Yani oradaki insanların motivasyonları, istekleri vesaireler de bu farklılaşmaya yol açıyor. Bu da bizi ikinci meseleye getiriyor. KOS projesinden öğrendiğimiz en önemli şey bu politikaları geliştirirken bu politikaların öznesine söz verilmediği oldu. Yani NEET'lerle ilgili politikalar geliştirilirken yukarıdan aşağıya gençlerin kendi istedikleri, kendi motivasyonları, kendi hayalleri masaya konulmadan geliştiriliyor. Bu birincisi. Bizim uğraşmak istediğimiz konulardan bir tanesi o. İkincisi bu sorun tek paydaşla çözülebilecek bir şey değil. Çok paydaşlı bir sorun. Çok paydaşlı bir sorunda işte öğleden sonra da biraz bahsederiz. Çok paydaşlılıkta soruna giden yolda, sorun çözüme giden yolda harekete geçebilecek çok sayıda aktörün varlığı. Dolayısıyla herhangi bir politika geliştirirken bu aktörleri yok sayarak, o aktörlerin görüşünü yok sayarak geliştirmek yanlış olacaktı. O yüzden de bizim amaçlarımızdan bir tanesi çok paydaşlı bir çalışma yapmak. Bunun için de bir paydaş haritası ile başladık işe. Birazdan bahsedelim. Onun atlığını da birazdan anlatacağım size. Nasıl çalışacağız? Çoklu yöntem çalışacağız. Mesela yine öğrendiğimiz şeylerden biri oydu. Türkiye'de sayısı arttı. Bunun için de müteşekkiriz. Bu çalışmaları yapan herkese müteşekkiriz. Çünkü zordur bu çalışmaları yapmak. Kantitatif ve kalitatif çalışmaların sayısı arttı. Bu konuya odaklanan. Bizim yapmaya çalıştığımız şey farklı olarak çoklu metot kullanmak. Yani hem niceliksel hem niteliksel verilerle beraber çalışmak ve resmin tamamını daha iyi anlayabilmek. Şu anda sadece resmi istatistiklere bakarak, ki çoğunlukla onu yapıyoruz. Türkiye'de hane halkı iş gücü anketi, ki kıymetli bir kaynaktır, onu kullanarak analizlerimizi yapıyoruz. Ama özel bir anket tasarlamak bunun için ve bence önemli olan bunun arkasını ve önünü gençlerle konuşarak anlamak. Yani bir tür etnografiyi masaya getirmek ki bu çokluluğu alabilelim. Bunlar amaçlarımız. Ama bu projenin çıktılarından en önemlisi araştırma sonuçlarının sunulması değil. En önemli çıktılarından bir tanesi politika önerisi. Biz Türkiye'de çoklu profilleri göz önünde tutan, sorunun çok boyutluluğunu göz önünde tutan politikaları önermek istiyoruz ve bunu da paydaşlarla beraber yapmak istiyoruz. Bu da ilk toplantımız o açıdan. Ne düşündüğümüzü sizinle paylaşmak ve sizden öğrenmek için. Bir sonraki slayta geçebilir miyiz? Şimdi bu bir tipik proje akışımız. Masa başı çalışma dediğimiz literatür taraması vesaire, onu tamamlamış durumdayız. Birazdan bahsedeceğim. İnternet sitesi inşa edilmiş durumda. Onun bir iki detayını vermek istiyorum size. Paydaş toplantılarına başladık. Biz coğrafi olarak proje 2 yere odaklanmış durumda. Bir, İstanbul. 2, Çukurova bölgesi. Çukurova bölgesi, Mersin ve Adana bizim daha önce de çalıştığımız, çok sayıda özellikle mevsim tarım işçileriyle ilgili çalışmalar yürüttüğümüz bir yer. Orada başka çalışmalar da yürüttük. İyi bildiğimizi düşündüğümüz bir bölge. Ve kendisine özgü sayısız dinamiği var. Dolayısıyla 2 bölgede bu tür çalıştaylarımızı yapacağız. Daha sonra derinlemesine görüşmelerimiz olacak. Anket çalışması var. Daha sonra politika geliştirme toplantıları yapacağız. Burada anket bulguları, derinlemesine görüşmelerden öğrendiklerimizle beraber nasıl etkin politikalar geliştirebiliriz onu bahsedeceğiz ve daha sonra da yaygınlaştırma, bunu ana akımlaştırmadan ziyade sorunu ortaya koyup alternatif bakış açılarıyla olası çözümlerden bahsedeceğiz. Lütfen. 2400 gençle anket yapacağız. 2400 çünkü bizim amacımız sadece NEET gençlerin profilini çıkarmak değil, NEET gençlerle diğer gençler arasındaki farklılıkları da sergilemek. Bunu daha önce 2016'da yayınlanan bir çalışmada yapmıştık. Yine bir anket çalışmasına dayanıyordu. Raporu internet sitemizde var. Ne farklılık var NEET olan gençle olmayan genç arasında? Siyaset bilimci perspektifiyle siyasal katılımda fark var. Toplumsal güvende fark var. Yeterlilik hissinde fark var. Ve bunun da belirleyicileri var. Şimdi biz bunu biraz daha genişletmek istiyoruz. Genişletirken de NEET olmak ne götürüyor, ne kaybettiriyoru sergilemek istiyoruz. Bu önemli bir şey. Devam edelim lütfen. 100 tane derinlemesine görüşme yapacağız. Bunun 100 olmasının sebebi, işte kalitatif çalışanlar bilir, niye 100? Niye 30 değil? Profiller bazında bunu yapmak istiyoruz. Yani farklı profilleri biz karşılaştırmak istiyoruz. Dolayısıyla da bunun sayısı 100 olacak ve genel olarak da farklı modülleri de çalıştırabilmek istiyoruz. Çünkü her bir derinlemesine görüşme yaklaşık 40-45 dakika sürüyor. Onları yaparken de herkes her şeyi sormak değil, bazı şeyleri bazılarına, bazılarına sorarak resmin tamamını görmeye çalışıyoruz. Temel meselemiz iyi olma yaklaşımı. Ya bunun üzerine biz teorik bir perspektif yaptık. Francisco da bahsedecektir çünkü o da benzer bir perspektiften bakıyor. Bizim şu anda geldiğimiz nokta şu. NEET olmak, bu statüyü taşımak gençlerin iyi olma halini azaltan bir şey. Şimdi iyi olma hali tartışmasına aşina olanlar var aranızda, görüyorum. Bu girdiğiniz mi çıkabileceğiniz bir tartışma değil. Ama iyi olma halinden kastettiğimiz şey kendisini nasıl hissettiğinden ziyade objektif koşullardan kaynaklanarak bu iyi olma halinin etkilenmesi. Burada da biz biyoekolojik model kullanıyoruz. Biyoekolojik model sosyolojiyle psikolojinin bir arada yürüdüğü bir şey. Bir gencin, ki çocukta biz daha çok kullanıyorduk, bir gencin iyi olma halini belirleyen aktörler yakın çevresinden oluşan mikro faktörlerden, mikro etkenlerden, aile olabilir, komşular olabilir. Mezo dediğimiz bir üst düzey, makro faktörlerden ve zamanı ruh adını verebileceğimiz faktörlerden etkileniyor. Bütün bu faktörlerde de farklı şekilde etkileri oluyor. Bizim bakmaya çalıştığımız perspektif o. Dolayısıyla bir gencin iyi olma halini iyileştirecek politikaları geliştirirken sadece mikro perspektiften yaklaşmak, ebeveynleri eğitmek ya da makro politikalar gütmek, sadece İslam politikalarına yönelmek ya da zamanın ruhunu inkar etmek mümkün değil. Zamanın ruhunu gözünde tutmak zorundayız. Bizim sürekli vurguladığımız bir şey, çoklu krizler çağında yaşıyoruz. Çoklu krizler çağında önümüzdeki 10 sene ekonomik büyüme olacakmış gibi politika geliştirmemiz mümkün değil ne yazık ki. Bunu da gözünde tutmak zorundayız. Ama mikro faktörlere de odaklanmak zorundayız. Bunu vurgulamam gereken noktalardan biri burası olduğunu düşünüyorum. Hepimiz bunu çok iyi biliyoruz. Türkiye'de NEET olma meselesi toplumsal cinsiyetle doğrudan ilişkili. Yani toplumsal cinsiyet sorununu yok sayarak Türkiye'de NEET olma sorununu çözmek mümkün değil. Bunu bir aklınıza koymanız gerekiyor. Ve farklı kesimsellikler var. Sadece bir toplumsal cinsiyet boyutu değil. Göçmen olup olmama. Başka şeyden yiyip gelmeme. Yoksulluk. Yoksul bir aileden gelen bir gencin kaderiyle daha varlıklı bir aileden gelen gencin kaderi aynı olmuyor. Toplumsal entegrasyon, çeşitli sermayeler, bütün bunları gözünde tutarak bu sorunu çözmemiz gerekiyor. Bunların en önemlisi toplumsal cinsiyet. Bu da bize kesimsellik yaklaşımını masaya getirmemizi sağlıyor. Ama esas meselemiz şu: NEET olmak neden bir gencin iyi olma halini etkiliyor? Bunu çok fazla tartıştık. Yapabilirliklerini etkiliyor. İlk akla gelen şey, NEET'seniz yoksulsunuz. Genç yoksulluğu diye bir şey var. O sizi bazı şeyleri yapabilir olmaktan çıkartıyor. Sokağa çıkamıyorsunuz. Arkadaşlarınızla gezemiyorsunuz. Kültürel tüketiminizi yapamıyorsunuz. Yapabildikleriniz az oluyor ama bu sadece bu kadar değil. Biz kendi aramızda uzun bir liste üzerinden bunu yaptığımız zaman gerçekten NEET olmanın yapabilirliklerini kısıtladığını gördük ve daha önemlisi farklı gençlerin farklı yapabilirliklerini kısıtladığını gördük. Yani kategorik olarak NEET bir gençten bahsederken onun yapabilirliği kısıtlanıyorsa bir kadın olarak NEET gencin yapabilirliği farklı şekilde kısıtlanıyor. Aynı şekilde kısıtlanmıyor. O yüzden yine bizim kesimselliği masada tutmamız gerekiyor ve bizim genel yaklaşımımız NEET olmak yapabilirlikleri kısıtlayan bir şey. Bizim bakış açımızda da otomatikman ne geliyor? O zaman iyi bir toplumsal müdahalenin yapması gereken yapabilirlikleri genişletmek. Yani bunu piyasaya bırakmamak, bunu aileye bırakmamak ya da bireysel sermayelere bırakmamak, bunu iyileştirecek toplumsal çözümleri geliştirmek. Dolayısıyla bizim varmaya çalıştığımız yer o. Ekip bu kadar değil. Ekip daha kalabalık. Benimle tanıştığınız Pınar, Başak orada, Tuğçe, Birnur doktora bursiyerimiz, Pelin yüksek lisans bursiyerimiz, Gizem proje yöneticimiz. Ayrıca da Karya var. Karya da TÜBİTAK'ın verdiği son destekle Star olarak aramıza katıldı. Star'daki bu iddialı proje hakkında mı yoksa bursiyer hakkında mı bilmiyoruz ama iyi bir şey olduğunu düşünüyoruz. Biz gençken yoktu böyle fırsatlar. Ama şöyle de bir gerçek var. Biz şu anda birden fazla projeyi yönetiyoruz. Bir de çocuklarla ilgili yürüttüğümüz bir proje var. Hemen hemen aynı ekip. O yüzden ekipler karışık diyeyim. Yani herkes her şeyde çalışıyor ama şunu da özellikle vurgulamamız gerekiyor. Bu kadar kalabalık bir ekibe çalışabilmek Türkiye'nin bu şartlarında lüks. Açıkça lüks. Yani gördüğünüz gibi buraya daha ekleyebileceğiniz 4-5 isim daha var. Öğrenci bursiyerimiz var. Onu ben biraz önce görmüştüm, kaybettim. Evet. Buralarda bir de öğrenci bursiyer olacak. Ee, Yani bursiyer olmayan öğrenci, stajyer öğrenci. Dolayısıyla bu bir avantaj. Çok fazla iş var, çok fazla işi beraber yapabileceğimizi düşünüyorum. Pelin'cim bir sonraki. Web sitemiz var, ondan çok kısa bahsedeyim. Şimdi bizim en önemli verdiğimiz şeylerden biri yaygınlaştırma. Yaygınlaştırmadaki temel kaygımız da şu: akademinin ürettiği bilginin sadece akademide kalmaması. Buradan da kasıt ne? Bir TÜBİTAK projesi yapıyoruz. TÜBİTAK projesi çerçevesinde 2 makale yazdık. Bir yerde yayınladık. Kaç kişi okudu? 5. Bu politikaya dönüştü mü? Hayır. Bir farkındalık yarattı mı? Bilmiyoruz. Bununla ilgili ölçümler var. O kadar az ki politikaya dönüşen akademik yayın. Bu baktığınız zaman. O zaman bir araştırma projesinin esas etkisinin toplumsal farkındalık yaratmak olduğunu düşünebiliriz. Biz de o yüzden her zaman projenin başlangıcında bir internet sitesi inşa ediyoruz ve bunu biz bir bilgi portali olarak yapıyoruz. Buradan kasıt ne? Bu sadece bizi tanıtan bir proje değil, bir internet sitesi değil. Hem faaliyetlerimizden haberdar olabileceğiniz, hem de bu konuya bir giriş yapmak istediğinizde literatürle hemhal olabileceğiniz bir yer. Bu web sitesini ziyaret edip şu ana kadar yaptığımız yayınları görebilirsiniz. Başkalarının yaptığı yayınları görebilirsiniz. Müdahale politikalarını görebilirsiniz. Bizim önerilerimizi görebilirsiniz. Bütün bunları buradan erişebilirsiniz. Bu bir portal. Şimdi bütün bunlar İngilizce'de de var diyeceksiniz. Ama Türkiye'de sosyal bilim yapıyorsak Türkçe sosyal bilim yapmayı da düşünmek zorundayız. Sadece belli bu bilgiye erişebilen kişilere sınırlı değil. Buraya yayınlara baktığınız gibi bir de ondan biraz bahsetmek istiyorum. Bizim için bilginin popülerleşmesi önemli bir şey. Yani ürettiğimiz bilginin kamuoyuna duyurulması. Bu yüzden de mutlaka podcastler koyuyoruz. Yani bu konuda şu anda 2 podcast var. Bizimle yapılan, Demet hocamızla yapılan bir podcast var ve sayısı artacak. Ve podcastler çok etkili oluyor. Bunun farkındayız. Yani sorunu anlatmakla ilgili bir podcast, araştırma bulgularını paylaşmak için podcast. Daha sonra da webcastler olacak. Yani video röportajlar. Bir tanesi Franco talking about webcast project, which you are learning now. Yeah. Webcastler olacak. O webcastlerle de popülerize edeceğiz. Burada tutmaya çalıştığımız nokta şu: bu kadar karmaşık bir sorunda her şeyi açıklayan, her şeyi çözen bir yaklaşım geliştirmek mümkün değil. Sorun karmaşıksa, sorun çoğulcuysa çözümler de çoğulcu. Biz masada sürekli çoğulculuğu tutmaya çalışıyoruz. Farklı görüşleri, farklı perspektifleri ki optimal bir çözüm geliştirebilsin. Yukarıdan aşağı olmasından duyduğumuz rahatsızlık çok açık. Bu akademik kaynaklar bölümünü ben tavsiye ediyorum. Dediğim gibi iyi derleme yapıyoruz. Kavramlar sözlüğümüz var. Herhangi bir disiplin kendisi fazla çalışmaya başladığı zaman kendi sözlüğünü oluşturuyor. Bizim için çok ya ondan bahsediyoruz dediğimiz, geçtiğimiz ne kastediliyor? Buna bahsettiğimiz nedir dediğimiz de var. Ve benim önem verdiğim şeylerden bir tane de müdahaleler var. Yani başka ülkeler nasıl müdahaleler yapıyor? Ki Francisco ondan bahsedecek. Son olarak buradan şeye bağlanacağız. Linki gösterebiliyor muyum bilmiyorum. Esas Cost Action'ının web sitesine bağlanıyoruz. Orası da kendi başına bir portal oluşturuyor. Buraya gittiğiniz zaman bu bizim Cost Action'ımızın web sitesi. Burada da çok iyi bir bilgi olduğunu düşünüyoruz. Çok farklı ülkelerden geliyor. Son olarak Cost nedir? Bir ufacık bilgi vermek istiyorum. Cost Action dediğimiz şeyler uluslararası araştırmacı ağları oluşturmayı hedefleyen projeler. Brüksel'de kurulu bir dernek, finansmanı üye ülkelerden geliyor ve üye ülkelerden insanlar projeler geliştiriyor. Araştırma şeyi değil, araştırma projesi değil, networking, ağ kurma projesi. Ve burada da gidip COST'un kendi web sitesine baktığınız zaman çeşitli projeler olduğunu görüyorsunuz. O projelere herkes başvurabiliyor ve özellikle söyleyeyim, sivil toplum ve politika uygulayıcıları tercih ediliyor. Sadece akademi değil, akademik network'ün olmasından. Bu önemli bir şey çünkü gerçekten farklı ülke deneyimlerini görme şansınız oluyor. Yani sadece Türkiye özelinde yaklaşmıyorsunuz. Başka ülkelerde görüyorsunuz. İki, farklı kişilerle çalışma şansınız olabiliyor. Onlardan çok şey öğrenebiliyorsunuz. En önemlisi, bunu da özellikle söylemem lazım. TÜBİTAK'ın COST için özel desteği var. Yani şimdi Türkiye'de araştırma yapacaksanız fon ihtiyacınız aşikar. Ve TÜBİTAK'ta Türkiye'de hala en büyük fon sağlayacak sosyal bilimlerde. Dolayısıyla bu tür bir entegrasyona gitmekte fayda var. Bizim projemizde bu. Bu aşamada TÜBİTAK'tan biz tam destek aldığımızı söylemek durumundayım. Hem COST projesi aşamasında hem de sonrasında gerçekten çok içten bir destek verdiler. Burada ne kadar çok farklı ses olursa o kadar iyi olacak diyorum. Bir bakarsınız COST'un web sitesinde detaylı olarak var. Burada susacağım. Yani yeterince bilgi verdiğimi düşünüyorum ama tekrarlamak istiyorum. Biz daha iyi tartışılır, daha ne kastettiği, daha iyi politikalar geliştirecekse burada herkesin sesini yansıtarak yapmakla mükellefiz. Yani masada olan, sorumluluğu olan herkes bir şekilde bu politika çözümlerine fikir vermeli. Başta gençler olmak üzere. Gençlerin sesini doğru yansıtmamız gerekiyor ki şundan kurtulmamız lazım. Bir genç için neyin iyi olduğuna kim karar verecek? Biz mi? Babaları mı? Hükümettekiler mi? Avrupa Birliği'ndekiler mi? Ne iyi bir genç için? Burada mutlaka onun failliğini masaya koymamız gerekiyor. Bu yüzden de çalışacağız. Çok teşekkür ederim bir daha buraya geldiğiniz için. Yoğun bir gün olacak. Kıymetli bilgilerinizi bize aktaracağınız için. Now I'm switching to English to introduce my friend, Francisco Chimoes. Francisco is a friend of mine and Pınar. We worked with him since 2019, just before the pandemic, when we kicked off this project, Rural NEET Youth Network. Oh, this is my fourth year and I don't know the name exactly. Okay. It's something important because I made such a presentation. Before this action, the number of academic articles focusing on the rural NEET issue was about 19. Only 19, and 3 or 4 was written by Francisco. Now, it is about 100. During the last 4 years, we published 100, about 90 articles, academic articles, in addition of policy reports, dictionaries, workbooks, etc., etc. We try to create a kind of epistemological community and epistemologic world to interpret what's going on there from different perspectives. The team was composed 130. It's composed of more than 40 countries from different. Many of them, they are from Balkans. Yeah. It brought us a lot of diversity. We have political scientists, we have psychologists, we have clinical psychologists, we have social psychologists, we have youth workers, we have social workers, we have social policy experts, civil society members, some people from the government, some people from Sweden, Turkey, anywhere. We worked all together. And Francisco was very successful in managing such a diverse and crazy team of individuals, and I believe that, especially considering the impact of pandemic, it was a very successful action. It shows the importance of human beings, human relations. As academics and other agents, we are not robots. We are not chatbots. We are human beings. That's why we need to consider this fact, and I believe that the most important outcome of this project is creating a kind of epistemic community based on philia, mutual friendship. It's something important. This is something, Apart from this excellent leadership of Francisco, I have to thank him. Francisco is a key leader in the study of needs, especially rural needs. I will read his bio. Okay. Too many bios. He has a PhD from the University of Coimbra as a psychologist. He's working at the Center for Social Research and Intervention at the University Institute of Lisbon, but he's living in Azores. Azores is a very beautiful place, and he was the chair of the post-action, because we will have our final conference on mid-March in Brussels. He's leading many international projects focusing on this topic, and he's the coordinator or initiator of a new institution which will focus on rural youth, not only needs. We are in process of creating a kind of observatory. He will talk about it. European Rural Youth Observatory, which will cover all of Europe geographically, not only politically. He authored more than 70 articles. He's the editor of several books and manuscripts. And he recently has been appointed as a member of the coordination group. He recently has been appointed to the pool of the European youth researchers to bring our knowledge to the table of postmakers. It's a pleasure to host you in Istanbul. Thank you for being here, and I'm giving it. Thank you.
So thank you, Emre, for your kind words. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for hosting me here, and thank you for your invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure to visit my friends Emre and Pinar. I think you touched the right buttons, because, of course, for almost 5 years now, we're doing scientific work. But I do believe that more than that, we are creating a community. And what unites us is, of course, the interest in improving the situation of young people across Europe. But not only that, we need a kind of liaison, a kind of combination of interests, but also personal perspectives to be successful. So I think I have my presentation here. As Emre said, I will try to bring you, let's say, an international perspective on needs based on many contributions from several colleagues. So I will try to summarize that during the next more or less 2 hours. I was amazed with the time you gave me, because I was expecting to come here as any speaker. We're used to half an hour, 1 hour at the most. And Emre and Pinar were very generous and said, no, it's 2 hours. So don't worry, because let me see if this is working. It's not working. Okay, so I will keep telling you to switch. Okay, so you can switch for the first one. This is a bit the agenda for today. Those are the points that I would like to share with you. Although we have a program, I'm from the south too, so this is going to be chaotic anyway. This is just our dream, but in the end, probably it's going to be a bit different. But the intention is to start by giving or for exploring some context. I am aware, of course, of your project. I have many times talked, for instance, with Emre about not only how the project started and the idea that was behind the project, but I also try to understand a bit more how it was being laid down by the team. And for sure, I will learn more. So when I talk about context, I'm talking about having a short conversation with you for you to teach me a bit more about your situation. I know bits and pieces of the situation of needs in Turkey, but of course, you know much more. So we will have a short conversation on this, and this is what I call the context. So after that, and if I'm going too fast in my English, just tell me, okay? Secondly, I would like to share with you some critical concepts that are relevant to discuss the situation of needs across Europe, and I believe they are also critical for the Turkish context. Then I will shortly offer an overview of the concept of needs, different profiles, and how this concept has been developed throughout the years. It's for sure not consensual, so I would like to bring you some keynotes on how this concept has been developed. And afterwards, I will delve into a more specific topic, which is the situation of rural needs. some challenges and opportunities for NEETs in rural areas, and also some future research avenues. In general, Emre opened the door to that, explaining a bit what are our plans for the future as a collective, as a group of people, a community of people interested in these topics. But I will try to give you some more detail and also invite you to participate, because this is an open community. It's far from being a selected group. We want to connect with more people, so maybe you might be interested in collaborating with us. So for the next slide, I just want to tell you that I could be here for 2 hours talking and talking and talking, but I'm a psychologist. I read minds and I read your own non-verbal signs. Okay, so after 15 minutes, you would be starting to fall asleep. So what we will try to do, of course, I'm bringing some information, of course. It's also my duty, but this is a conversation, and I will introduce some key questions or comments so that you can also come in and share your thoughts. Okay, and of course, try to be focused on your comments. Try to also challenge me with questions, but this is an interaction. It's not a monologue, please. Okay, so this will be the methodology, and starting with the context. And going to the next slide, I collected some graphs from the Turkish report of the Rural NEET Youth Network that was prepared by Pinar and Emre. And I've collected some of the graphs to try to understand a bit more what happened after the pandemic in Turkey. So the first one I bring you is one related to unemployment in Turkey among young people. And of course, the rates are high. And what we see is that by 2019, before the pandemic, across different age groups or subgroups of young people, these rates seem to be increasing, especially from 2018 to 2019. So if we go to the next slide, and here is where the learning for me starts, and I need your help, is to know what happened to youth unemployment in Turkey since 2020, from your perspective, whether it's factual, you have numbers in your head and you want to share with me, or it's an impression, or it's different across the country in different regions. And you can agree or disagree from 1 to 5. So we will use the mic. I think it's this one. No? Is there any? Yeah. So you can comment a bit on this. Try to go to the point and teach me about what's happening after the pandemic in terms of the youth unemployment in Turkey. Who wants to just give some input so that I can learn a bit today? I know that you were not probably thinking that I was coming here to learn with you, but yes, I want to learn with you for sure. Any comments on this? Here, again, your name, I'm sorry. Ismail.
Ejman is my name.
You know, my Turkish is a bit, so if I don't pronounce your names correctly,
No
please.
problem. It happens quite often to me. No, it's a difficult name. Well, actually, we know as a fact that it's, well, I disagree with that comment, because we know that now we became the champion of needs worldwide.
So the trend is the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And is it the opposite across? There's someone else there that wants to add something. Is it the same across the country? And if you can to add any other comments on this?
Actually, these numbers are true. But in economic terms, unemployment rate is calculated among labor force participation rate.
Yes.
So probably people are more desperate to find jobs. So labor force participation rate decreases, and because of that, unemployment rate decreases.
Okay.
So I think after the pandemic, more and more young people they lost the hope to find jobs.
Okay.
That's why the unemployment rate seems to decrease.
So they stay for long periods outside the workforce.
Yeah.
And they are losing hope. And just one more question on this, if you allow me to add. does that mean as well that you have high rates of precariousness, meaning that people are working informally or for short periods? Is that also an issue here in Turkey, or not so much?
Actually, informal labor is around 30%.
30%?
Yeah.
Among young people, or in general?
In general.
In general. So, but young people will be inside, of course, that
Yeah.
group. Okay, so these are some first learning points just to understand a bit how things are evolving in the past 5 years. I will go to a next figure, which is early school leaving. So as you know, this is also a very important indicator when you want to report on needs and when you want to understand how their situation evolves. Of course, not completing at least secondary school is a very, very strong risk factor to become and stay in the NEET condition. This is the evolution till 2019 again. And in the next slide, another learning point, promoting secondary school attainment is increasing across Turkey. And you can, again, go from agree to disagree. How are things evolving in terms of school attainment back there? Fortunately, you're not doing like the Portuguese, because we ask and they stay put for 10 minutes. Thank you for participating.
Thank you. I'm Mediterranean, so I has to be on the run
Yeah,
all
of course,
the time.
of course.
So school attainment is increasing across Turkey because we have the data.
Okay.
We do know that, but it's also
Even
just
after the pandemic.
Even after the pandemic, yeah. It was especially National Education Ministry's central focus is increasing to promoting secondary schools, because in Turkey the obligatory education is consisting of the secondary school after 2012.
Okay.
And but they are not achieving this quite well, and it has to be the central focus point of the government, especially after the recent elections, not the last one, but
yes,
prior to that. But this is just the quantitative data, not tell the story of how they attain, but the numbers are good in that sense.
Are improving. Okay,
Yeah.
so that seems to be at least a positive trend. I have an additional question regarding this. How is Turkey managing to improve these figures? Is it related only to, let's say, general education, or vocational training is also important in Turkey to achieve these goals? What is the role of vocational education training in Turkey? Is it important? Is it an important sector? Does anyone know a bit about it? Not so much. There again, if you don't mind. Just to see the share of the balance between what we call general education and VET.
Yeah, actually, more students in Turkey goes to general schools in secondary education, but government has opened strong policy towards the promoting vocational education. In that sense, we see some types of socioeconomic differences between these schools. Particularly, low socioeconomic background students goes to the vocational school, and actually there is important government spending on vocational schools, and it's a policy intervention that they aim to promote across the educational policy.
So that's something that is in the priorities of policy making.
In the priorities.
Thank you. There's an additional comment here on this.
Actually, vocational education share was 32% 2 years ago.
32.
Yeah, now it's 44%.
Okay,
so it's increasing. We are working on vocational education and industry collaboration, actually, as Istanbul Chamber of Industry. But the main problem is that vocational education graduates do not prefer to work in industrial sector. So we're trying to increase the industrial employment of vocational education graduates, because if you're not employed in the area you are specialized, then vocational education doesn't make any sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will have more questions, but I will refrain on that, and then we can discuss later on. But a good point here on how much things are improving and what are the challenges there. Next slide. Sorry here. Sorry for that. We need the mic for the people online.
Thank you. I don't have statistical data to back this up, but there's
Yes.
also a pool of youth who actually enroll in universities, and the number of private universities in Turkey is increasing, and they enroll in that just simply because they don't think that they can find a job, and they sort of escape the statistics that way, and then they enter into the unemployment pool at a later age with, you know, a university degree. So that also they're not officially in the NEET statistics, but you know, they're also, I think,
but they're registered in formal education.
They're registered in formal education, so they're not part of the stat, but then they actually sort of become part of the, you know,
later on.
Later on after they have a university degree.
Okay, which is actually,
it's sort of like a delaying sort of, you know, technique.
Well, you can look at that in two ways, because they're increasing their education anyways, right? Because they're registered in education, but of course, and for instance, in Italy, that's very clear. People after graduating are finding very hard to get into the labor market. So we will also discuss a bit on this. So if there are no more questions, we can go to a next slide. And then this is the NEET ratio. And just a short comment on this, and we can show the next slide. You can switch. So NEET rates in Turkey are increasing since the pandemic. So taking into consideration how things are evolving in terms of unemployment, education, what is the outcome? So is this ratio increasing, decreasing? Did it stabilize? What was the impact of the pandemic? What are the comments on this? Here.
I think the NEET rates are increasing in Turkey, but you know, I just would like to make a comment on go back to the glossary. Who are you calling NEET? For example, now we are running a project, and we are trying to reach the NEETs, and for being eligible, the applicants have to be NEETs. So we ask them whether they are students. They say no. Well, in fact, they're not. But when you dig deep, in most of them, you see that, you know, they are registered in a university sometimes.
So that's the comment.
That's the same. I would just like to.
They're registered, but they're not attending.
Exactly. So the reason why they're, you know, registered is that they have this, you know, some economical advantages like passes for transportation and such. So that's one thing. So they're not considered as NEETs, but they are actually. The second one, again, goes for being employed. So you ask them whether they have an employment. They say no, which is correct. But when you look at the registrations, so you see that they are within the coverage of Social Security, because their parents just, you know, registered them to the Social Security system, and they made a start their, you know, employment journey to retire early.
Yes.
So they're not employed, but they are registered in the Social Security system, so they're not considered as an NEET.
For that reason.
But in fact, they are. So these people statistically are not NEETs, but in fact they are.
Okay.
So on top of the existing statistics, I guess we need to add them up too.
Okay. So those are important differences with, let's say, the overall concept. And you are kind of saying, stop with the questions. Let's go to the concepts. And we'll go to because I think there are essential fundamental differences between how needs are conceptualized in Turkey, and how, according to, let's say, the EU perspective, needs are considered. So, of course, if you want later, when I present the concepts, you want to comment on that, I think that's important because then that's my job also to bring in those ideas.
Local peculiarities, I would say.
Yes. It is a bit different, and now I understand a bit more the comment made before, because it's only registration and not that being enrolled and going to classes. It's different from
kind of pseudo students and pseudo workers.
Well, we can move ahead, and you can go ahead for the next. So let's go for some. Yes, we still have a comment, and then we'll go for the concepts.
Hello, I want to talk the last question. After pandemic, also Turkey crossed the online training and learning system, but in the east and north and central of Turkey, there's also doesn't internet. And in that part, students maybe spent 1 year with the online system, but even most of them, they didn't enter any class. And
so they register, only register.
Yes. Okay. And because we also saw so many problems in Turkey, in that part of, there is also village. In the village, always the internet is go and up. And also there's so many electric problems. And when students just lost 1 month or 1 year in the education, they couldn't continue the next year because they lost some skills.
Okay.
And in the primary school, the 1 year also one part of the education is really important. If you catch that, it's really hard to continue. So after that, it's really hard to continue school, and most of them start to be NEET.
Okay. So there's also an issue of coverage.
Yes.
How education coverage spreads across the country. Okay, and that's important for some of the things that we are going to discuss. Thank you for your comment. So going ahead with the glossary, I would like just to before going in detail to the concept of NEET and how things are evolving across different European countries. I would like to bring in some key concepts. Many of them, for sure, you heard about it, but I think it's important to highlight them so that we have, let's say, a guided discussion on this. And the first concept is, of course, the idea of the school-to-work transition, which is very well established in the literature. And in general, when we talk about the transition from school to work, we talk about this shift in the role from student to worker, or at least this shift from being enrolled in education and having what is called a first stable and satisfactory job. Well, this is how things get a bit tricky, because you can question what is a satisfactory job and what is a stable job. And more importantly, in the EU, we are shifting towards a new agenda of decent jobs. So for a long time, the fact that you had a decent job was not the core of the policies, especially when we talk about young people. The core was just get them into the labor market. Whatever are the conditions, they just have to be enrolled. Because we know that on the long term, if young people get stuck, if they are in this condition, in this NEET condition for a long time, there are medium and long-term effects, which are very negative. We call it the scarring effect, meaning that more often these young people will become unemployed or will find precarious jobs and will have a very unhealthy life even. So even health indicators are worse among people that get stuck in this NEET condition for a long time. With this new agenda, we're talking about jobs that offer not only social protection, fair payment, but also well-being. So we're talking about a whole new concept of work, which is designed, let's say, to make sure that young people can develop their own identity towards a job. They have social protection. but they are also, their well-being is also secured. So getting a job is not only instrumental, is a development strategy for your own, for yourself. But this connection between decent jobs and the school to work transition is still to be met. We're still talking about stable jobs, having a contract. And personally, I think that's a very narrow perspective on how you conceptualize the transition from school to work. So this is the concept, and these are some ideas I would like to share with you on how probably the two different agendas and two different concepts are going to merge in the next 10 years. One is the school to work transition, and another one is decent jobs. We still haven't done that. Another concept, and it's in the next slide, has to do with vertical coordination of policy. So in a nutshell, when we talk about vertical coordination, we're talking about the coordination between policies at European level, from the European level to the local level. And this is particularly important in the EU countries, of course, because they are really, let's say, affected or influenced by the EU policy packages. This is very relevant in the NEET area because at the peak of the previous economic crisis, we had so many crises that now it's different to situate the crisis. But the 2008 economic crisis, at the peak of that, in 2011, 2012, the NEET condition became a priority for European Union agendas. And that then at that time, there was this decision to implement the youth guarantee that I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a big policy package developed by the European Commission, and that was supposed to be implemented, and it is supposed to be implemented by national governments with flexibility. They can develop their own strategies, but they diverge a lot. So some countries have done a very good job in developing their own strategy. Others did so and so, and there are different, very different rates of coverage. But the main point here is that from the decision or the proclamation of the European Commission, we will do this. And that the main goal is to make sure that any NEET finds in 4 months some kind of response. It can be training, it can be a first contract, it can be vocational educational training. Well, the package can be very, very wide and very comprehensive. But in 4 months, it's supposed to find something that is formal in education or in the labor market. From that proclamation to how that is implemented on the ground, there's a huge gap. Let me give you an example. If you go to, for instance, to rural areas, public employment services struggle to have the resources, the staff, the skills to address young people in this situation. So this kind of coordination is still very difficult, especially in more deprived territories. So that's something that we have to take into consideration, that although the proclamations are really ambitious, then the on the ground situation sometimes is very different from what the proclamation is stating. Another key concept has to do, in the next slide, with what we call horizontal coordination of policies. I don't know exactly what is the situation in Turkey, but let's try to address this in a general way when we talk about Europe or governance models in general. And believe me, I'm not a specialist. I have people in the room that know more about this. But one of the issues is that when we deal with needs, and that's part of the workshop in the afternoon, we deal with what we call complex or wicked social problems. So we're talking about problems that are not linear. We do not solve this as we solve a disease. We have the disease, and then we go to the pharmacy, to the drugstore, we buy the medicine, and we solve the disease. These problems are unlinear, they're very complex, and due to their complexity, they require a combination of efforts. They require that different governmental departments the private and the public sector cooperate. Otherwise, several dimensions of the individual level needs will not be met. And for sure, many of you are working directly with young people, and you can understand, for instance, that you met some young woman or some young man that are really eager to start to develop, to go to the labor market, but they lack transportation, or they have a health issue, or they're women and there are care duties within the family that have to be covered. So many of these complex situations combine when you talk about needs. And to address that, we really have to stop working in silos, in departments, separating private from public, separating education from employment, from social welfare, and find combined strategies, complex strategies through cooperation. In the afternoon, I will explore this a bit more. And finally, one last concept that I think it's an important overarching concept to understand how to address the need situation are active labor market policies, which is a brand or a branch of policies that have been widely developed in several European countries and actually are under the youth guarantee as well, which are policies driven with the goal to make sure that we can prevent the negative consequences of unemployment. We promote the inclusion in the labor market, and we have several policy packages that are being implemented throughout Europe with this focus and with the focus on young people. Just a quick note on this. It is interesting to note that while 10 years ago, needs were clearly a priority in EU countries, and a lot has been done, because when you look to the shares of needs across several countries, they have come down, and we're going to talk about that. Now we have a second version of this package called the Youth Guarantee, which we call the Reinforced Youth Guarantee. And we also had these major investments under the Resilience and Recovery Mechanism, which is a policy package created by the European Commission as a response to the pandemic. But when you go to, for instance, this Recovery and Resiliency Plan, you see that needs are not a priority. Investments in integration in the labor market, for instance, support tax reductions for companies to hire, entrepreneurship programs, they receive exactly zero euros in terms of investment. There's a lot of investment on training, and some countries are investing the part for young people in 100% in training, but not so much or nothing at all on labor market integration. So connect this with the previous slide. You see again some kind of silo approach to policies instead of crossing the funding to make sure we have more complex policies. So now going directly to the questions that were made. What is the concept of NEET? What is the relevance? And of course, what is the evolution of the concept, because the concept has evolved. So I know that now you are thinking, please don't share more graphs, but can I share one more? Okay. So in 2022, these are the latest or the most stable figures that we have for the NEET share in Europe. We see that there is a very big variation at the national level across the EU countries. So the share of NEETs is ranging from 4.2 in the Netherlands to 19.8 in Romania. And this is a trend. If you go from north to south, things get worse, but we'll talk about that in a minute. No, please. Yeah, no problem. Importantly, NEET rates are higher in rural areas compared to cities and towns and suburbs. And this trend is very, very clear in 11 out of 27 countries. You will say it's not the majority of the countries. Yes, it's not the majority of the countries, but where you find these differences in rural areas, these differences are huge. We're talking about 10, 15, sometimes 20% difference between rural areas and cities. And of course, rural areas performing worse. Now you can share the second one. So if we go to the concept of what exactly we understand by needs right now, we're talking about young people that are aged 15 to 29, according to the Eurostat, who are not employed in education or training for 4 weeks, 4 or more weeks. 4 or more weeks. Some people are finding this a bit strange, but this is the definition we have, a very narrow definition, which means that what is happening is that you have the definition and then you have people coming in and going out and kind of orbitating around the concept, which makes it difficult, for instance, to select people for projects, for interventions, etc. But this is the official concept. I would like to add to this that for a long time, especially for the previous 8-10 years, there was this disagreement on the age range. So it seems now that finally the Eurostat and the OECD, the big international institutions, have focused on young people between 15 and 29. But you still see some policy packages in the EU that define the age range differently. For instance, if you go to the social scoreboard of the European Pillar of Social Rights, which is also a policy package aiming at needs, not only needs, but vulnerable groups, you see that the age range there is from 20 to 34. I personally would agree more with a wider age range, because as the rates of young people going into education are constantly increasing, you'll have longer trajectories of inclusion in the labor market, meaning that even people above 30 will be in a similar condition, or in a condition that you can consider a NEET condition. Okay. So going to the next slide. This is where we stop a bit my monologue. Okay. I would like to kind of co-construct with you the definition of NEET, bringing in also your visions and your questions. Okay. You saw a very general definition, which is the definition in the labor force survey perspective, and the one that we use across different EU countries. But now we'll play a game that everyone likes to play: agree or disagree, like the emperors. So I will show you a sentence, and you might disagree or disagree. You can also play with it and say, I don't know. And you can make questions, of course. So one sentence, you can agree or disagree. I will ask you and you'll have to, I'll do this, okay? And if you have questions and comments, please come in. It's for your own participation. So the first sentence in the next slide is, needs all look alike. They constitute a very homogeneous group. They're very similar to each other. Who disagrees? I see already people saying no. Who disagrees? Many people. Pinar and Emre cannot vote. Is there anyone agreeing with this? No. Why do you disagree? Comments. And if you want, please give me input on what you find in Turkey. Who would like to comment on this? Can you identify subgroups, different situations? What are they? Here? And then here, okay.
Yes, I think needs are not an homogeneous groups, group because as we talk about the intersectionalities and etc. Maybe there would be a young person who was dropped out of the school, and another person who lost her job and couldn't find a job for 6 months maybe. So these two examples needs are very different from each other, and we can also develop another profiles about this. So we cannot talk about an homogeneous group.
And your project's about profiles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's start with this idea that how you are involved in education and employment is already a starting point to separate different kinds of profiles. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, first comment. Another comment here.
I think I'll have a similar comment.
Okay.
But then, you know, within our project at least, now we're approaching them as clients. So we need to have personas, like profiles.
Yes.
It's, you know, gender-wise, there are differences, age-wise, education-wise, socioeconomical. So there
and you
are,
do see in practice those differences.
Yes, exactly. In practice, we have, for example, engineers. 30% of our applicants, actually eligible applicants,
engineers
turned out to be, you know, unemployed engineers.
Okay.
So, and of course, we do have a lot of women with broken careers due to having a child. So, so you just, you know, these are extremely different personas. So then you have to address their differences.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So one thing is how you position regarding these two main areas, employment and education, and then how you cross that with gender, age, level of qualification, because you might have engineers, but also people who haven't concluded secondary school. So very different intersections between being in the condition and your own individual trajectories, your own characteristics, your own features, right? Okay, I think we have an agreement on this that we disagree, right? One more comment? Yes, please.
You know, Emre Hocam has warned us at the beginning of the project that, you know, that what we were expecting to have applicants from the, you know, lower social strata, but rather, you know, in the for being an NEET, it's kind of a luxury. Okay, so you choose sometimes not to take some, you know, unwanted, disadvantaged jobs. So it's a luxury to remain as an NEET as well.
Let's discuss that, because maybe there are also profiles connected with what you're including now in the discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah.
Okay, so we all disagreed. Yes, for sure, the NEET condition is very diverse. We have one more comment there. Well, please use the microphone so that everyone can hear you.
I just have a question. Informal workers, people who are working informally, are they NEET or not?
Yes and no, it depends. It really depends. For instance, in some countries, they might be registered in public employment services. That will happen in Portugal, for instance. They will be registered. They will be considered officially NEETs. They are hard to outreach and to target because they don't trust institutions to find a job. They trust their neighbors, their family, and sometimes they prefer to remain for some time or a long time in that situation. If they are not registered, it's in many countries, it's always like this. It's an official thing. If they are not registered, they're invisible, which is even worse. So we kind of developed this strategy where you have NEETs, and then you have other people that are NEETs but are invisible, so we don't know even that they exist. We can talk a bit more about that, okay? So registration and the connection with services is the kind of the entry point to become a NEET. It's a bit strange, but that's how we are dealing with it, okay? And I'm going to talk a bit how that evolved. Okay. Yes, one more comment here. One more question. Okay, okay. I need you to challenge me as well, of course.
My question is about the definition of need, especially with regard to formal education and formal employment. It's clear.
It's
either you are in the employment or out of employment. But how do you specify the boundaries of training, and how do you evaluate a person who is not out of training for more than what's training, and how do you specify
training
that?
So we would consider training for the purpose of being enrolled. So let me go back just a bit, okay? And it has to be this has a connection with the story of the concept, and I'm going to go back to that. When this idea emerged, the idea to create this concept was to portray, to feature the disengagement of young people with institutions. Being institutions in comas, the labor market and education. So from the beginning until now, we only consider those not in the NEET condition, those that are in training, official training, non-formal education doesn't count. Okay, I think that's what you're asking. So if they are enrolled in general education, vocational training, apprenticeships, as long as they are formal, universities, so higher education, they are not considered NEETs. And that's one of the issues that you raise here. It shouldn't be only a question of registering and putting your signature there. But that also shows how the services are, probably this is a strong word, dehumanizing a bit the connection with young people. Because it's just bureaucracy. They don't develop strategies to connect, monitor, follow up, and know how these young people are engaged with the institutions, okay? So for formal, for definition, as long as you are enrolled in formal education, even if it's just a registration, you're not a NEET. Strange, huh? Yeah. But thank you for the question, because that's very relevant from our perspective, because that questions how we are engaging with young people. It's not it is as if young people have to engage with the society, but then we are okay if we're not engaged with them. Strange, huh? Okay, I don't know if I went to the point, but okay, let's look at another sentence. I'm not controlling time, but I know that Emre is good with warnings. So if I speak too much, he will stop me. The majority of female NEETs are inactive due to family care reasons. Who agrees in this case? Some agree. Some are doing this, trying to play around. Who disagrees? And then there are people that are not voting. Okay, comments. Inactive. Pinar, what is not clear? Just for me to...
We're not sure if everybody understands.
They're out of the labor market. Inactive is that, out of the labor market, not looking for a job. Yes. Is this enough, Pinar? Okay. Comments. Any comments on this? I think there's a comment. No. No. Just someone stretching. Any comments? Is the female NEET condition an issue in Turkey? What are the thoughts that come to your mind when you read this sentence? One comment here and then back there.
Hi.
Hi.
Maybe we can think together, actually, because I was just thinking,
okay.
Since we just agreed on the non-homogeneity of needs, then this majority of female needs is also not coming from a homogeneous group. Hence,
for sure.
Hence, it depends on the class, actually, that they're coming from, first and
social
foremost,
class.
I think. And also it depends, I think, on their relations, on their networks with the outer community.
Okay.
What I mean is what kind of support that they can receive from their family or from their community or from their relatives. I think it determines a lot whether they're inactive due to family care or not.
Okay. So just to comment on that, it seems to me that you're saying, even if there's a big group of women in this situation, and there are other situations, there are several factors determining this result. Is this a good summary? Is it enough? Okay. She's saying she agrees. Okay. There and here, if you want to share the mic.
I agree with the statement because in Turkey, childcare facilities and elderly care facilities are not
Are limited?
They are very limited, not publicly offered.
Oh, okay.
Not affordable. So for a woman, the decision of going into labor market or the decision to work or stay at home, it depends on these facilities. So because these facilities are not widespread and publicly offered and accessible and affordable, most of the women has to calculate, okay, if I go to work, I have to earn that much money because she has to hire these facilities privately. So that really affects her decision to go to the work or stay at home.
So in a sense, this reflects that complexity we were talking about, that at the services level, you would need some kind of response to lower the rates of female needs, at least for this kind of profile.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. One more comment. In three, because there's one here, and one here. No problem.
I agree with the statement, but we must some sort of widening in the family care reasons, because we do have a data on early school leavers in gender-based, and also we have recent data on child survey about why they leave the school. They ask parents answer these questions. There are clear differences between female and males, and most of the time females says it's related to families, but sometimes it's related to care reasons, but sometimes family doesn't allow them to enter the labor market or enter the school, and this is a really strong opinion in some sort of areas.
Gender stereotypes still that are very strong on that
really
sense. Okay.
And in that case, if he increases the family care centers like early childhood centers, it sometimes not necessarily affect the increase of the female needs to enter the labor market, because another stereotype is that it's the woman's duty to care their small child. So, and that's a stigma related to their sending to their child, even there is a care center. So
any public policies at that level have to consider both the resources, but also the stereotypes.
Yeah, also.
Okay. Thank you. One more comment here, and then we'll move to a final statement for your comments. There. Yes, please.
So we know from the Turkish statistics agency's data that there are 10 million women that are out of workforce because of the care responsibilities.
10 million.
Yes, so we already have the data covering the whole women, not I don't think there is a data specified according to age, but we already know that 10 million women are out of workforce just because of the care duties.
Okay, so it's a huge number and relevant for your country. One more comment here, please.
In your presentation, you mentioned about vertical issues.
Yes. From the higher level to the local.
In the city and the rural area. For instance, regarding this sentence, I agree. The majority of female needs in cities are inactive due to family care reasons.
In cities.
In cities, but when we are talking about rural areas, especially in Turkey, the family care responsibilities are shared within a greater family by, for instance, grandparents, by siblings, but the majority is inactive since they are not registered. Because in Turkey, the women's participation to labor force is one of the worst figures in the world, even lower than the Middle Eastern average.
Yes.
And I think, especially with regard to rural areas, the biggest problem is the registered labor force.
So you'll have differences in terms of reality between cities and urban and rural areas. Okay. Okay. You're kind of constructing the whole question by layers. It's interesting. One or two more short comments, because otherwise I'll fail to share more information. Yes.
Thank you. I just want to make a quick comment. We must, as you already mentioned in the beginning, it's a complex, wicked problem, this NEET problem, and we must be really careful with the explanations, particularly for these gender stereotypes, or, you know, we live in these extended family networks. Things are changing in Turkey as well.
Yes.
Gender stereotypes are changing. The family structure is changing. So we need to consider those changes when we try to understand what's going on with NEET and with respect to access to services, what is available there, and also what's going in the labor market as well.
Exactly.
What kind of jobs,
demand?
Exactly. What kind of jobs are available for women in the labor market? To what extent it's a women-friendly labor market as well?
Yes. But for sure, this is a starting point, but finally, you offer the nuances that are interesting for me also to understand a bit more the situation. Let's do the exercise just one more time, okay, with in the next slide. That also agree with this rural and urban divide, something that should be made aware, but really we should also think about history, how things are changing as well in terms of the values, the family structure, and the conditions for women. So for sure, this has to be an input for our discussion. Finally, NEET rates always reflect a negative personal and social condition, meaning the person who is in this condition, it has to do with your comment, are in a bad situation. Agreeing. Who does agree? 1, 2. So the others disagree? The others disagree. Okay, comments on this. So just to clarify, who is in the NEET condition? For sure, 100% are in a bad social and personal situation. A very negative situation here.
Actually, you know, it depends on the definition of negative personal and, personal.
Let's say in disadvantage.
Disadvantage. So even though they might not be in a disadvantaged situation in terms of economical situation, what we observe that they're hopeless. You know, they feel disconnected to the society, and they're losing their hopes, and they're, you know, kind of alienated. So of course it's a negative personal and social condition. So sometimes not an economically disadvantaged condition.
Can you identify any profile where that disadvantage does not exist? Or
you know, of course, if it depends on if you are in a very, you know, A+ socioeconomical condition, privileged and unemployed, and, you know, not in education, well, I mean, you can enjoy your life. So, but this is perhaps, you know, 0.5%. The rest,
a big minority.
Yeah, exactly. So the rest, what we observed, they are really in alienation, hopelessness, pessimism, and passivity.
Okay. Yeah. Comments there. There's a comment there. Yes, please.
the question again. If a person prefers to be not in education or in employment, is he or she a NEET or not?
Yes. It might be registered and be a NEET. It's one of the profiles, actually.
Okay,
but a minority.
In that case, it may not be a
You went
negative-
directly to the question.
Sorry?
You went directly to the point.
Yeah.
So, but please comment.
No, it's just obvious. If I prefer to be a NEET, then it may not be a negative condition.
Yes, yes. And any additional comments? Yes, of course, please. She deserves to participate. Yeah.
I disagree with the part, I guess that was your purpose, the part that says always, because I think when we talk about needs and their preferences, we have to talk about the labor market conditions as well, and which are quite harsh for the Turkish youth, because we are kind of an ageist society. So the NEET youth, or maybe youth who are just about to enter the labor market, they may prefer to stay out of it, because they know that they might not be, getting their labor's worth, especially in terms of the economics and in terms of the kind of development opportunities that they may be offered. So I think they may sometimes prefer to not be in that situation and to be able to have their own
preferences. So the quality of the demand or the type of demand is also might also influence some choices.
Yeah.
Which.
But I also agree that they are not a majority, it's a minority, because it depends on your socioeconomic conditions.
Okay, thank you. So let's move ahead, because you went directly to the point. In general, of course, we're talking about people in disadvantage. I just wanted to highlight how the concept evolved, so that then I can list for you a typology, maybe a typology that does not fit exactly the Turkish situation. I want to highlight that, okay? It's a typology that has been developed by the Eurofund and refined by, I would say, the top scholar on these issues, Massimiliano Mascherini. But before, let's go to the story. So in the mid-90s in the UK, and maybe some of you heard this part of the story, there was a policy gap. So mandatory school was up to 16. But young people could not work formally before turning 18. So between 16 and 18, they were wandering in society. So in the mid-90s, the government decided to create a horrible term called status zero, meaning all the people aged 16 to 18 that were not, in this case, involved in or enrolled in formal education because they stopped studying, they did not follow through to complete other levels of studies. But they could not be also in the labor market officially because it was illegal. So time has passed, and in 2006, Andy Furlong, who was, for instance, the leading editor of the Journal of Youth Studies, he unfortunately has passed away, but he was a specialist on this NEET status concept, and then the concept started to show up in the literature as NEET. He wrote this paper, which is still very much cited and an important critic to the definition of NEET, called Not a Very Neat Solution, explaining that first, we should really look at how we are defining the concept. Then this is not a homogeneous group. And finally, if we do not nuance the concept, we will be putting in coma society against young people. It seems as if these young people want to be in the situation. They're just lazy. They don't want to be in the labor market. They're just very comfortable not studying or working. So this was the first major critique to the NEET status, but it was still a kind of academic discussion. Later on, the Eurofund and the group from the Eurofund led by Massimiliano Mascarini started to develop very, very comprehensive studies to try to understand who exactly are these people in the NEET condition and what are the profiles. Because of course, if they are heterogeneous, we should at least find a typology and try to make sure that these typologies are useful for services, for programs, for NGOs who are working with creating the persona, trying to understand a bit more. And they did a very extensive work on this, and they created, they published this report, NEET, Characteristics, Costs, and Policy Responses in Europe. And also they did something else that was very important to lead the European Commission to create Youth Guarantee, because they estimated the economic cost of not including these young people in the labor market or in education. Because sometimes politicians do understand things when we talk about money. So the waste was so big for societies, for governments, that they had to create something, and they did create the Youth Guarantee. And later on in 2019, Massimiliano reshaped a bit the typology. And what I'm going to show you is the latest typology he created. It's published in a book. If you want, then I can share the reference. And in the next slide, what he proposes is that there are two big groups. One, the unemployed, and the other one, the inactive. Within the so-called unemployed, which are those that are ready to work but cannot find a job, there are at least three main profiles. The reentrants, who are, very shortly in a summary, those that in a very short period, they're just waiting. They already have a job proposal. They very shortly will come into the labor market, and they will re-engage with the labor market. Then we have the short-term unemployed, who are in an employment situation and ready to work for less than 1 year. For me, 1 year, it's a long time, especially if you're a young people. But this is the definition. And this is the definition, I think, a bit in line with the labor force survey, which defines long-term and short-term unemployment like this. And then we have the long-term unemployed, who are those that are ready to work, do not have a job, and are in this situation for more than 1 year. So this is the first kind of splitting of a big group that we call the unemployed. The second one are the unavailable or inactive. It's the same thing. So those that are not looking for a job and not seeking to get into the labor market. And here, I think this is his and the group most important contribution. He splits this group in 4 profiles. So the first one are those that are unavailable for illness or disability issues, which is still a significant number. And according to the International Labour Organization, a group that is increasing, especially due to mental health issues, especially after the pandemic. And there's a report on youth employment that shows this. This subgroup is increasing, and the underlying reason are mental issues, mental health issues. Maybe in the end you want to comment a bit on this. I don't know the situation in Turkey, but this is something that should make us reflect a bit, because it's not only a question of physical disability or physical impairment. We see this group increasing for mental issues. Then those that are unavailable because of family responsibilities. And indeed, this subgroup is constituted mostly by women that are dedicated to what we call the internal functions and responsibilities or duties of families, taking care of the elderly or of children. And I think in in a way, connecting very well with what you described during our discussions a while ago. Then we have one, I would say the subgroup that is most worrisome, the one that really concerns us, the discouraged workers. So those are the ones that were unemployed, but at some point they stopped looking for a job, and they are hopeless. They think there's no way they will find a solution for their situation, and they gave up. And we know that there are only a few studies on this subgroup, and we do know that these have the most serious consequences, as you can imagine, even not only at the social level, at the social exclusion level, but also at the health level. They have very low levels of well-being. Usually, they tend to have higher rates of use of drugs, alcohol, etc. So we should really think about or look at this subgroup with bigger attention, let's say. And finally, we have the other inactive that cannot be covered by these other 6 subtypes, but in general, these are the 0.5% that are in this situation voluntarily, because they have a social condition that enables them, for instance, they are registered in an employment service, but decided, or even registered in a welfare service, but they decided to take a gap year. They would be considered NEET, okay? But it's a minority. So if we go to the next one, I know that you're thinking this, but I'll show you one more graph. Actually, I think it's more than one, but what I want to show you is that although we may and we should criticize and reflexively criticize policies and decision-making regarding needs, we must acknowledge the following. The youth guarantee in many ways was a success in EU countries, because there was this decision by the Commission that now there's a whole package and funding to help NEETs to get into the labor market or to find a training or education option. And governments will have a financial package to do this. The results are clear. We see that NEET rates have decreased across Europe in general. We see that countries such as Bulgaria, Greece, Ireland, and Spain that came from very high rates of NEETs were the ones that had biggest decreases on the NEET rates for the past decade. These are numbers between 2011 and 2021, just to be clear. Only 2 countries recorded a minor increase, a very minor increase of NEET rates, and there were Austria and Romania. And in between, they were declining. But then in the end of the period, they were above 2011. But only 2 countries were below the target for the EU countries for 2030, which is 10%, to be below 10%. 9%, I'm sorry, which were Slovenia and Sweden. So the big picture is things are improving. Things are improving in many, many countries. There are very significant drops in some countries, but only 2 are below a target of 9%, which is registered in what we call the European Pillar of Social Rights, which is the policy for social welfare and social inclusion in Europe. In the next slide, forget the graphs. I don't want to traumatize you. Just to comment on the following. Then these numbers are between 2011 and 2021. In between started the pandemic. And I'm bringing in these graphs just to comment on the following. The pandemic did not have such a dramatic impact as we expected on young people. We were expecting a very high increase of the NEET rate during the pandemic. What happened was that in the first quarter, especially in the first year, there was an increase, and not such a big increase of NEET rates across European countries. But when you kind of cluster the countries and you have Eastern countries, Southern countries, Northern countries, what you see is that while Northern countries' rates of NEETs came down fast, so they had policies aiming directly to young people, in the other countries, it was slower and still above the average in the EU. And it remains the same, especially in Italy, Greece, not the case in Portugal. And this shows that countries that have more vulnerable policy and governance structures, in general, also have worse responses to critical situations. And for instance, Amber writes on this. We're in a context of polycrisis. So I don't know, each 5 years we will have a crisis, some sort of a crisis. So this means that the governments, in order to respond to this, will have to be prepared to have specific, tailored policies for young people. Otherwise, they will have problems to make sure NEET rates, youth unemployment rates, dropouts from school do not increase so much. Okay. The following slide. Just a comment on this. This report, I do recommend this report from the Eurofund on the impact of COVID-19 on young people. And this is an additional comment. Overall, across Europe, what we found was that the fact that young people were more, in general, young people were more affected than adults by the pandemic in the workforce. They were more affected because, of course, they have a higher rate of precariousness, short-term contracts, and they are working in more precarious areas such as culture, some kinds of services, tourism, and all of them shut down. So, of course, there's a contextual reason for this. It was a pandemic. We had health measures, security measures, businesses shut down. But as you can see, we also have an effect based on the fact that young people still have very precariousness interests in the labor market. So we do not have a decent jobs perspective on young people's entry on the labor market. That's why, and that's what this report highlights with some figures. So now, although in general, the policy and the programs in Europe under the youth guarantee can be considered a success, the thing is that from a territorial point of view, inequalities are stretching. They are stretching between the North and the South, and between, at the subnational level, between cities and urban, suburban areas and rural areas. And rural areas are performing worse. So the next slide, this is now for a bit of relax. Are you relaxing enough? This is where I live. So this is the city where I live. It's called Angra. I live in the Azores Islands. I work for the University Institute of Lisbon, but I'm a kind of privileged guy because I go to Lisbon once or twice, maybe 3 times in 1 month. But then I go back to the islands and I live there. Actually, Amber and Pinar visited. We had a conference there for Cost Action in May. And so if you have the chance to visit, believe me, the tourist bureau of the Azores did not pay me to advertise, but I always like to advertise because it's a very unknown place. But if you have the chance to visit, these are not an archipelago of 9 islands in the middle of the Atlantic, 2 hours by plane from Lisbon, 5 hours to New York. We have direct flights to New York and Boston. Yeah, actually. But I would like to show you a bit the images of the place. It's a very rural place, as you can imagine. And in another life, before 2015, I was a youth worker. I was not a researcher. I worked in an NGO. as a project manager, as a street worker. I did. Are there any people from NGOs here or private sector? A lot. Okay. It's a school by itself. It's a non-formal education setting because you learn everything that you can imagine on working with young people when you work in NGOs. At least it's my experience. And for a long time, I worked with NEET in the region in that framework, working directly with them, developing projects with them, sometimes based on their own ideas. So this is a concern for me for a long time, and that's why I invest so much on working also at the international level to learn from others. And this is a situation in my region, in the Azores. I don't have more updated figures, but as you can see, compared to the national average, it's always above, and it's where the NEET rates are worse in Portugal for the last 15 years. They have improved a bit. They're now in 15%, but in Portugal, the rate came down to 8%. So based on this, and you can show the next slide. In 2018, more or less, I started to think that I needed to learn more about how this is going on in other places, in other countries, because there was a trend, and the trend was mostly in Eastern and Southern countries. There was a huge gap between rural and urban rates of NEETs. In the next slide. So what I'm going to share with you for the following moments is a focus on rural NEETs, on those regions that are more peripheric, have lower resources, and why it is important to focus on that. So some main features of rural NEETs. First of all, we do know that in rural areas, school underachievement tends to be higher. And that's the most critical fact for becoming NEET. Everywhere. If you have a lower education, you have a higher odds of becoming NEET. But that's worse in rural areas. Then there's an intersection, a strong intersection between gender and educational status, but probably not in the way that you expect. What is happening, I don't know, and you can comment on this information I'm going to share with you. What is happening everywhere in the EU is that women in rural areas are moving away to the cities because they are more inclined to keep studying. The ones who stay, many of these women are dedicated to family care. But then we have a whole bunch of guys, male, NEETs, low educated, that have a very precarious trajectory in the labor market. There are even studies showing strong masculinization trend in rural areas. So women are moving away and men are staying. This is the case, for instance, in Germany. So younger generations are composed in rural areas mainly of men. Is that the case in Turkey as well? I suspect it is not, but I'm not sure. What is happening in Turkey regarding this gender issue in rural areas? Does anyone want to comment, please? If you could just comment for my own learning.
Hello. We have some also words, housewife and home girl. Also, we should discuss that words because that words also shows you cannot work, you cannot study, and we show that words when the girl is little young. Because, for example, between 9 years and 18 years, if they are not study, they stay at the home and they say, I'm home girl. I have to wait to marry, maybe then I will building a new home and I will be a housewife for my husband and I will care about my children. but the future show us we have to discuss housewife actually is terms or for the future or not. Yeah, my mother also housewife, but she is also learning something from websites, online learning. She also says always my dream study and be teacher. But she is 55 years old. She is also now talking about to with me what she is feeling when she is young, and about also in that time because something was really hard to study.
Yeah, of course.
But now we see the educational is more easy. I mean, online system is everywhere. But we have to, I think, discuss homegirl and housewife, these terms.
Okay, so the gender issue is clearly something that, even if it's changing, we should understand what is happening in the framework of needs. In any case, just to tell you that this is really an issue, an important, a key issue to describe the situation of needs in rural areas, is to be focused on the gender issues, educational attainment, and the intersection between both. I won't go into details on the other, I'll go directly to the challenges, yes. And I think we discussed this, so we can go one more further. And I would like to, because we're running out of time, I would like to share with you some specific challenges for rural needs, and then also some opportunities, because we have to balance this, because there are some opportunities. Well, one of the big challenges, at least based on, for instance, reports that we have developed in the Rural Need Youth Network, is for sure out-migration. So we do know that in several European countries, young people tend to go away, especially women. There's a big gap that I was mentioning between those staying and those leaving. And the gap is in terms of qualifications, in terms of work experience, and in gender terms, there's also a gap there that I already mentioned. And those staying, of course, are more exposed to low qualified jobs, precarious employment, and longer and more recurrent unemployment spells. Also due to the fact that, as you mentioned, the labor demand is different in rural areas. And some of them, of course, do not have many alternatives beyond, for instance, farming, and others have been losing industries. So it's not a very diverse economic setting. Another challenge in the following slide is invisibility. So one of the things that we have learned and worked on in this cost action in a, let's say, a sister project called Tracking, is that services really struggle to find needs in rural areas. So first of all, they are very hard to target by service. One of the things that is changing a bit, but it's just a bit, is that services found that digitalization, and as long as there is good coverage, you were mentioning this, there is a good internet coverage in the region, maybe using some tools such as social media may be a starting point to connect with young people in the need condition, but still it's hard. Most of the times, those that are not even registered, but that they would be needs, they rely on their informal networks to find a job. And you may say, well, that's okay, they're helping, they're offering support to their children to find a job. It's what I'm saying is not, I'm not using a moralistic approach. If I was in that situation, probably I would want my parents to help me, and if I was a parent, I would do the same. The problem is the outcome. So most of the times, these families already come from a low socioeconomic background, so they will repeat the same kind of jobs that their parents and their grandparents had, instead of finding opportunities outside the same sector, the same level of wages, which can be promoted by social service or by public employment services. So we have to take into account that we might be reproducing cycles of low wages and not so good quality jobs. And finally, although digitalization is promising in this area, I must say that I'm a bit concerned on how digitalization is being taken over by public services, especially by public employment services, because there's this belief, and it is really a belief, that if you digitalize everything, in the sense that you have good platforms, good websites, social media working, TikToks, you will find young people and involve them in the labor market. There's only a few papers on the effects of digitalization of public employment services on vulnerable groups. And what we know is that vulnerable groups need human presence and mentoring and support. So the human element for needs, for migrants, for vulnerable women is fundamental. So we have to find a good mix, it's not to eliminate digitalization. It's to combine digitalization, digital support, with human mediated support. So we have to be careful on that. Finally, of course, rural schools sometimes have a limited infrastructure. In rural areas, schools also struggle a bit to retain good quality teachers because they do not offer such a good condition, professional condition, as in cities. And something that we have been finding a lot in several countries is the fact that vocational educational training many times in a rural area does not reflect the opportunities of that territory and does not match young people's needs. Let me give you a very short example. 12 years ago, as a youth worker, based on an idea of 4 young people, we initiated eco-agriculture business in the NGO that I was working on. And of course, we had to create also training packages for young people. And by that time, at least in that island, there were 0 vet courses on farming, 0. The project went okay, especially among young people. We had a second edition, and we said, from our perspective, this is enough because it's a small economic environment. We cannot saturate the market. But then, when we finished the project in the following year, the formal schools opened 3 courses on farming, and repeated and repeated and repeated. So we have to be careful on how we kind of select the areas and the niches to develop vet and to match economic opportunities. Now, very shortly on the opportunities for rural needs. And I will skip this one, the following one. Yeah. First one that I would like to highlight, participation. We still have a very adultic-centric perspective on how to develop programs and services. We think we know how to reach out, to involve, to engage, and to respond to young people's needs. First of all, in rural areas, we must think that, and this is studied, and actually with some colleagues from our cost action, we did a study on the emotional bonds to rural areas by young people and their political participation. So they are not inclined to participate politically in the formal sense, to be part of a political party or to be engaged in campaigns, but they want to address political issues, local needs, find local solutions. They are motivated to do that, but sometimes they fail to find a space to do that. So it is important that rural communities, rural programs try to create these spaces where they are also co-developers of participation. One of the examples, I don't know if this exists in Turkey, this is quite popular in Portugal, and it's kind of, I think it's improving, in my opinion. It's what we call participatory budgets. Do you know this term? Is this used here in Turkey? No. So in a nutshell, for instance, a municipality every year uses part of their budget for a local contest of ideas. And citizens have to present, campaign, there are public sessions, and there's a voting, etc. And some municipalities are even doing the youth participatory budget. So it's for youth, and youth they have to self-organize to develop their own ideas and to put to the community so that they vote. So this is one of the examples of participation that I think that might be interesting to develop. Another opportunity is digitalization. I don't have a negative vision of digitalization. You can create opportunities for improving digital skills, although we have problems sometimes with coverage. As I mentioned, it can lead to some efficiency of coverage of public employment services, but as long as they coordinate this with human mediated support. And this can reduce out-migration fluxes due to services dematerialization, enabling people to work remotely from rural areas. And I know many people, young people, that I have friends from the Azores, much younger than me. Yeah, they are young people, not like me, an old guy, that, for instance, are working in Germany and then the Netherlands, and they come for 3, 4, 6 months and work from their parents' home. They still like to be with their parents. Or sometimes they buy a studio there and they're working from there directly to Berlin. So there are opportunities. And of course, when we talk about sustainability, which is a strong trend now, this may upgrade farming, help to develop other services such as ecotourism, which is quite popular among young people, these kind of projects. And due to all the international crisis, we are more and more looking at closer supply chains, local consumption. So these might be opportunities for young people to find jobs. So to finish up my presentation and looking at future research avenues, this is how you're looking after almost 2 hours of listening to me. I'm really sorry, but I still have to share a couple of information. So, and I will forget this. This is too much. So as Emre mentioned, and Pinar as well, we have been working on this cost action called Rural NEET Youth Network. Most of this knowledge is coming from there. Most of the papers you've seen there were developed by us as a collective. We were working on social inclusion issues, formal and non-formal education, employment services and employment, sustainability, and seeing how these new ideas of sustainability can change communities and respond to rural needs. So this is how we started to develop these ideas. But and these are some of our outputs. If you go to the website that was shown in the beginning, we have several special issues, policy reports. This is a special issue, for instance, on youth and mobility in rural areas. We developed 5 special issues in different topics. And we also have other outputs that, this is another one on Youth and Society Journal. And in March, there's a book coming out with a kind of summary by working group of our main conclusions, following the bioecological model, which is also used here. So we're going to the macro, to the individual level, analyzing and making recommendations on how to address the situation of rural needs. I had the big pleasure to co-edit this book with Emre. So we are the co-editors. We also have in English a podcast series with several researchers, ones from our community, others outside, bringing other views to our work. So it's also available in Spotify, for instance. And most importantly, all this collaboration, gathering several countries, several researchers with different backgrounds, is now merging to what we call the European Rural Youth Observatory. So the focus in the future is not so much, or not only, on rural needs, but on rural youth in general. So this is a research-led association, bringing in researchers, but also NGOs that want to participate, public services, university. So it's young people and youth representatives. It's an open initiative, although with a focus on producing knowledge and co-producing it with several players. The association has just been registered some weeks ago. We had a meeting in Bulgaria to finish up our strategic plan, and it's going to be officially launched in Brussels. But if your institutions are interested in collaborating, are interested in receiving our outputs, because they're all open access, you can register and you can be a part of it, and we will for sure welcome you very well in our community. And I think that's it. It was a really long talk. I hope it was informative, it was fruitful. And of course, if you have more questions, comments, or complaints, please do tell me. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
So I'm obsessed with definitions. So I would like to go back to the definition as well. So you just mentioned about the decent job definition, which is stable and satisfactory. So when you
look, more than that.
Yeah, it's even more than that. And when you look at the current trend, so in the near future there will be no decent jobs at all. So we will all taste being NEETs probably, because this need of flexibility brings a situation where you don't have those stable jobs. Today, 36% of the total employees in the US are freelancers. So not having, these satisfactory and stable. And until 2027, it's expected to, exceed 50%. So it's a global trend. So in that case, the NEET ratio, probably, if we keep the same definition, will go over 50%. So then perhaps we need to focus on the total employment scene globally or regionally. So what do you think? Who shall we call NEETs in the future?
Okay, so to begin with, this concern or ambition to develop decent jobs agenda is relatively new, even at the European level, and for sure does not follow any agenda from the United States. It's an European agenda, so being recent, even the definition is still, in my opinion, being improved, because the first institution that talked about decent jobs was the International Labour Organization. And they had the definition. And the definition was, a decent job is a job that ensures social protection, decent, fair wages, and more or less that was it. There were a couple of dimensions, but the focus was that. So having a contract, and a contract with rights. And this was in 2010, more or less. And the EU kind of adopted this idea and started to develop an agenda. And at the national level, governments are starting to develop their own agendas. So in a universal way, not for young people specifically, but for workers in general. The thing is that some people started to say, well, you have to match the macro perspective of jobs related to welfare protection with the individual perspective of jobs, how you understand your own job. So of course, it must be stable, it must have rights assigned, it must have protection, but it must also ensure that you develop a professional identity and engagement with your company, for instance. And as well, it should be a concept including the well-being dimension. And of course, what are the, let's say, the scholars that are moving towards this definition or trying to bring in this definition? Psychologists. And this is a debate. It's a very recent debate. And I think it's an interesting one because your option might be to go completely flexible in the sense that you don't want to be in a job from your 25s to your 60s. But every time you get a new job, you have a job that secures all these dimensions. I don't know if it's clear.
Even not permanently.
Exactly. Exactly. Because people will move around and hopefully they will have different experience. I think it's a difficult match, but the match is between that flexibility at the individual level you can opt for. But when you opt for, you out there in the market, the jobs that are being offered by the employers have these dimensions included. I don't know if this is enough, but and if this happens, of course, this transition will be different. It's not a transition from just being a student and then anything that comes is okay. No, it's a transition for a trajectory for developing your own personal perspective.
Yeah. Thank you.
Although
it's an optimistic approach, I share it myself too. I hope this holds true.
It's optimistic, I know, but I think it's also a bit realistic in the sense that the discussion is open. So let's see. I think there's a question there. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really comprehensive and I think it's really useful.
Very long, very comprehensive.
No, it was really relevant to understand the
polite,
NEET framework. I just have a couple of comments about statistics. Most of them were up to 2021. I think it would be better to have 2022 and 2023 data.
They were there. I didn't want to, but I can comment. I can comment on that.
Sure. Plus, it was EU data. If you could see the OECD data, we could also have an understanding about Turkey.
Yes.
Because we are also talking about the NEET framework of Turkey. So maybe it would be better to have the OECD framework as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
But I can comment on that, of course. So regarding the time frame, and now I'm talking only on EU data, of course. What we have seen is that in 2022, the NEET rates, at least at the EU level, were already coming down to the same rates as 2019, especially in the north. But when you look at the average, northern states were below that average, and southern countries and eastern countries were above that average for the EU. Regarding the OECD data, of course, it is useful because then we include other countries such as Turkey, Bosnia, that are not here represented, of course. We have worked on reports for those countries. Some of those countries, Turkey, Bosnia, they have reports and they use the OECD data. And of course, we know that sometimes the rates are reaching to 30, 40, sometimes even 50% in some of the regions. So we do know that there's a big gap when you start to cluster other countries out in Europe outside the European Union. I have to be humble and say that although we had some of that data and we worked with colleagues from those countries, I wanted to listen from you, not only the data, but the reality. That's why I made so many questions. I'm sorry for that. Because although Emre and Pinar are kind of giving us the feedback, I knew that there were people here from different kind of institutions. So it was also important for me to learn from it and to see that the nuances, for instance, the gender nuances are not exactly the same. So although the figures are higher, they're higher for other reasons, I think, than the ones we have in most of the EU countries. There's any other comment or a comment? Okay.
There was a question from Zoom participants. Where precariously employed youth can be positioned in the NEET category?
Where? Sorry?
Precariously employed youth.
If they are working, they are not NEET. If they are formally working, they can be precarious in the sense that they have a short-term contract, for instance, but it's a contract, or even a monthly contract. So during that period, by definition, they are not NEETs. But what I try to highlight and discuss with you is that although you have the official number of NEETs, around them you have very precarious conditions, which are in and out the NEET condition, and being a NEET is almost a formality. And also that another thing that I would like to stress is that the concept unfortunately came from this perspective of institutional engagement of young people, as if there was a duty from young people to engage with society. And then we're very happy when they're registered and we know where they are. But it seems as if the rest of the society does not have the responsibility to engage with them. So in a nutshell, these young people will be in and out this condition, but as they are working at that precise moment, they are not considered NEET. But the risk to become NEET again is higher. Okay.
He's also commenting about this. I mean, he says that it's not included in Europe. Some reports in Turkey consider it in NEET category due to high risk of
higher risk. Exactly. So in a sense, that's what's missing at the EU level. We would need a more flexible definition so that the risk was considered, or at least the time frame and the risk were considered together, so that we could, in a more appropriate way, address the needs of these young people. If there's one comment.
We were talking about this decent work. I also find that discussion very interesting, but also, as Emre mentioned in the beginning, we are also thinking of this issue in the times of crisis.
Yes.
In times where economies, we do not expect economic growth in certain parts of the world particularly. Can we carry this discussion also out of the labor market and also consider decent community work as part of the solution? Maybe it's a paradigmatic change, and but I wanted to hear your opinion on that. You know, the feminists proposed wages for house work earlier. We have come a long way from that discussions, but can we also think of like wages for decent community work as a proposal for NEET, who doesn't have any option to find a decent job in the labor market particularly?
Yes, well, I think that in a way, when I was talking about cooperation for complex problems, what we need is decent communities cooperating for decent jobs. So the circle is closed. So for sure, that's another level or another layer of how you reach to decent jobs. Completely agree with that. I think the problem is nowadays is the approach. So we're still organized in a very 19th century fashion. The states are still organized in a very 19th century fashion, in a way that they have these different bureaucratic departments. They struggle to, or sometimes compete in how they deliver their services. And this is seen at the community level, where they should have an impact. So I completely agree that in order to reach to decent labor markets, you have to have decent communities or working in this framework of cooperation to reach out that goal. So I don't see that being disconnected. Okay, I don't see this is disconnected from. They are complementary. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Francisco.